Hi, welcome to Frisky Talk 11 with Danny Howells. From opening for John Digweed at his Bedrock nights in the 90s, to his eclectic and timeless mixes on Global Underground and Renaissance, to running the record label Dig Deeper and touring the world, Danny's musical journey and impact on the industry is incomparable. It was so wonderful to get a chance to speak with him during Miami Music Week, in the city that was the home of his GU027 album and a place he's connected with many times. This was such a fun, expansive, and inspiring talk where we cover the range of his career, from wanting to be a mobile DJ to burning out and how he was able to refuel his passion. We also talk about how animal activism finds a connection to his DJ world and what to expect with the new 3D project. He has so many wonderful bits of wisdom as well as some amazing stories, and it's truly my pleasure to share this Frisky Talk 11 with Danny Howells. What brought you to start DJing in the first place?
Well, it was kind of like inevitable for me, really. I mean, like when I was really young kid, probably like 7 or 8, we'd have like a family wedding. You'd have a mobile DJ there, and he'd bring along like 2 turntables in a coffin, as you call it, with a mixer, and about 4 cases of 7-inch singles. And I was always obsessed with the whole idea of not so much mixing, but like sort of like creating a soundtrack for an evening for an event. I remember I used to like harass these DJs all night long, not asking them what to play, but asking them about like how you do it, how you get into this DJing. Like, and this is mobile DJing. Not obviously I didn't end up doing that.
It's cool. Yeah.
It was like, you know, like these guys were playing like, you know, like weddings, whatever kind of like party you can imagine. They were hired to come and do these events, and I was fascinated. And I remember I used to talk to them a lot, and they'd write down notes for me. And I remember I had them for years. I think I might have lost them at some point, but it's like, you know, have records for every occasion. You know, birthdays. You know, congratulations. You know, you name it, any kind of celebration, you have a song for that kind of event, and it was in my blood. You know, I was always into the idea of dominating the music and like taking control of the music for an evening. As time went on, I became a big record collector of you know, from pop music when I was a child, David Bowie to T-Rex, through to like rockier kind of things, to pop music. And then in the 80s, I went through my sort of pop phase and got more into like Prince and The Cure and the Smiths and sort of more alternative kind of stuff. And then as electronic music sort of like infiltrated into my my sort of like sphere kind of thing, I gravitated towards that and started collecting that. And around sort of like 91, I bought my first turntables, and I didn't buy them because I wanted to be a DJ or anything like that. I just wanted to make mixes. So I got my first turntables and just sort of started doing mixtapes. I think the first one was kind of a house, sort of techno kind of thing. It was pretty awful. Then the second one was probably like a sort of like a more of I think I might have done a Prince mix kind of thing, Prince and De La Soul, all this kind of stuff. And then I started doing more house mixes, and one of them got to John Digweed. And actually no, before Digweed got one, I think I actually got dragged down to a local club called The Crypt to with a record box. We were going down there because the club was opposite where I lived, and my friends were going like, let's go down, bring your records. And I was like, no, don't do that, they've already got a DJ. They went, bring them down. So I took my records down there, and I felt like a right idiot. And then my friends were going, look, Danny's, you know, got his records, can you let him do like half an hour? And the club was like, okay, if he fucks up, he's banned, you know. This is my favourite club. I used to love going down The Crypt. It was such a cool little club. And so did half an hour, and then after that they came up to me and they said, oh, okay, you can do every Friday night if you want. I was like, what? And they gave me a residency, and I think that was like the end of 91. or the beginning of '92, and that gave me a lot of experience because I was doing like open till close. It was only 4 hours, 10 till 2, but it was still enough to like learn how to like shape an evening and how you like open a room, how you close a room, how you peek a room out, kind of thing. And shortly after that, one of my mixtapes got given to John Digweed, and it was not by me. I knew him, but I was too shy to actually give him a tape, and I was like, didn't have any confidence at all. And my friend gave him a tape, and then I got a call saying, come and open up a Bedrock. So yeah, I just sort of kind of fell into it, really. Like, I think it was friends dragging me into things and forcing me to do things against my will. I mean, I was happy enough,
but like for your own, you know, like
they were putting me in these positions, and it was like, oh man. But like, I was just happy. I was nursing at the time, and I was like supporting myself with my day job. And I was doing a lot of long hours. I was doing like 60, 70-hour week every week, and doing night shifts, morning shifts, afternoon shifts, and DJing for me was just a hobby, and pretty the same now. I just did it because I love music, you know, whether it doesn't matter what kind of music it is, as long as it's not commercial stuff you're going to be hearing, you know what. It was, you know, it was just something that was in my blood from birth until now. And so it was never anything I set out to do. And when I actually did start getting more like what's the word, in demand as a DJ, I was kind of like, how did this happen? I never planned this. And that's the way the whole thing's been. I never planned any of it. It's all just kind of fell into it, and very lucky that I did.
Yeah, it's really interesting. It's like some people set out with like a goal, you know, and it seems like you're just a natural.
Well, I wanted to do something. It was always my dream that I wanted, but I kind of thought, if I'm going to be a DJ, I'm going to be a mobile DJ. I envisaged myself with my huge collection at a very, very young age of singles, you know, like all my sort of like David Bowie, Duran, with all the stuff I'd accumulated like throughout my life. I imagined I was going to be doing weddings and 21st birthday parties and things like this, not traveling and playing like, you know, like the festivals and clubs and going to the most amazing countries in the world. Never dreamt in a million years I'd be doing anything like that. And that kind of DJ didn't even exist then. You know, the whole concept of even the when I very first started DJing, the whole idea of traveling to another city within my own country seemed quite sort of alien. And, you know, if we had a DJ come down from London, we were like, whoa, this must be some sort of big mover and shaker, you know? And so, yeah, never wasn't anything I ever imagined I'd be doing. So still kind of like can't quite work out how I got here. But I'm very glad I did.
Yeah. That's fun. So you're into all kinds of different music. What is it about electronic music that got you like...
Yeah, God, I don't know what. I mean, it's got me hooked into it in the first place. I was into electronic anyway, because growing up through the 80s, you always had like, well, in the 70s, you had like a lot of like experimental stuff. It would sometimes cross over into the charts, you know, stuff like Magic Fly by Space and like Donna Summer and Kraftwerk and these kind of things. And then in the 80s, you had like sort of post-punk, and a lot of that experimented in electronic music. And then you had obviously like Joy Division, New Order. And then as the 80s progressed, you had like, well, I mean, there was obviously like a lot of stuff going on in the US clubs, but my sort of exposure to electronic was via the remix, where you had like, a lot of, we used to see like names like John Morales on a lot of 80s 12 inches and Shep Pettibone and things like this. So the whole concept of the extended remix, and then it was like you hear in these, somehow you'd like hear a mix somewhere, or you go to some club and you'd hear a DJ mix, yeah, these records together. And that was kind of like my sort of like thing that got me into like the whole idea of continuous music. So then obviously when it was kind of like just sort of after Acid House that I started getting into it, really. I sort of like 90, 91. It just sort of really sort of like struck a chord with me. And the whole idea of like continuous music throughout the night. No one talking crap, you know, like there was no... You know, because in the before that, you'd have someone talking between each song saying, hey, that was so-and-so, and this is Luther Vandross, and blah, blah, blah. And don't forget, you can get 2 drinks at the bar for the price of 1, all this kind of crap. And this whole concept of like continuous suite of music, which is a really old-fashioned way of putting it, was like so appealing to me. You just get totally lost in and really like immerse yourself in. And and come out of the other end and go, whoa, what was that? And that was kind of like how I got hooked, really, and wanted to do that myself, and with the tools that I had, which was like 2 decks and a mixer and an array of music spanning sort of like really deep, like American house, which was kind of known as garage at the time, all the way through to very early progressive house labels like Cowboy and oh god, what else, other labels were there? A lot of the sort of like R&S stuff, and the more sort of like Belgium techno, and kind of like some of it was quite cheesy, but trying to make it all kind of make sense was kind of like how I got into it personally. And then that's kind of something I've carried throughout my DJing throughout the years, you know, having a wide span of influences and wide range of music that I'm into, and trying to sort of like put it into one sort of hopefully coherent lump of music.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because I mean that goes on with like, how did you feel like when did you feel like you found a sound that was like your, you know, did you ever feel that way?
Not really. I mean, I think I think throughout my, I say career, but throughout my life, you know, there's been music, and I think like that's me, you know. It's like, and it's kind of always kind of like more about the groove and about the feeling of a track rather than like an individual moment in a track. But as far as sound goes, I think like if I listen back to my really old mixes and stuff, there are things in there that I would still play now. I think I've always gone for like I've always been sort of drawn to a kind of timeless sound. Things that sound really modern, like now or 15 years ago or 10 years ago, 5 years ago, never really appealed to me. And I think by not being into those kind of tunes, or being into sort of fashionable sounds, and sort of being on the sort of like edge kind of thing, that's kind of where I've always sat, you know, sort of like stuff that's got sort of certain groove to it. It doesn't matter whether it's like deepest, like sort of like filtered down dub techno kind of track, or sort of melodic house, or whether it's like full on kind of like loopy raw techno. It's just something about the sort of like feeling. But I think the thing I've always had musically that I've always tried to put into my sets is just trying, like I said before, trying to condense all the influences and all the sounds that I'm into a set, whether it's a 90-minute set, whether it's a 3-hour set, whether it's a 6-hour set. And obviously the time of a length of a set will dictate kind of just how on how many tangents I can go. But even with a short set, you're still trying to push it in these little directions as much as you can. I think that's what I've always had. And if I listen back to my earliest mixes, you'll hear me trying to sort of span that range of music, and that is what you will hear now as well. That's kind of like where I've always been, really. Just always have a philosophy of like, take what you like, whether it doesn't matter what genre it is, doesn't matter who made it, doesn't matter what label it's on, just find the tunes you like, listen to them blind, and then try and put them in some sort of order, you know, and try and make them sound coherent. That's kind of like, sometimes it fails, but you know, I've always given it my best shot.
Do you play a lot of like new stuff now, or is it like, I feel like it's harder to find timeless tracks now?
Oh no, I don't actually. I totally disagree with that. I find it's all still there. I find digging around for it is I mean, I go through. I mean, I don't really sort of shop on many stores. I mean, I do a lot of my stuff on what people play, and you kind of find that it's been through a sort of a filtration process. So you're only sort of dealing with, you're only being exposed to the sort of higher quality. You hear, you know, a lot of dubstep, a lot of drum and bass, and you hear a lot of like different sort of few genres that I don't really dip into that much unless I'm doing like some eclectic mix. But I find I have like an overload each week of good stuff, and it's hard for me to actually sort of like whittle it down to a manageable amount. So I do actually find with patience and with work, I still find those tunes, and now I can sort of complement it with like the stuff I'm making myself. I'm producing again now, and I'm able to sort of like add to the music that I'm finding with my record crate digging, and put my own tracks in there as well. and I don't find it hard to find good music. I mean, I think some people complain about it, and I've had a few requests in the past. I think because I'm not on the radar like I used to be, which is a much nicer place to be. It is, honestly, believe me, it's like much less pressure and much less bullshit. Because I'm much less on the radar, I've had a few requests. People sort of think you've disappeared, and I've had requests to do oldies sets. I'm like okay, do not insult me by asking me to do an oldies set. If I turn up at an event and I'm having the best time of my life, and I've had a few shots of tequila, and I've got 50 really amazing people in front of me, and we're having the best time, I might go into a half an hour of oldies, but it'll be on my terms. Do not come to me and say we want you to play an oldies set, because it's like a kick in the teeth. It's not only is it a kick in the teeth to me, it's a kick in the teeth to all the good music that's out there right now, because there is so much good music. And if I was to like go and do a like one night do a 3 hours oldies set, that's 3 hours of new music I could have played. So I've done it the only time I've sort of like given in was it was really good friends, and it was a night in Edinburgh, and we go back a long way, and I refused. I said no, I'm not going to do it, but I'll slip in a few, and I slipped in a few, and the ones that I slipped in, they didn't even know they were old. So like it's kind of like worked out fine, because I do that anyway. I mean, I still chuck in a few old bits, but they're bits that people don't know, or bits that like might be 10 years. Take someone like Mr. G. Like, he's made so much music throughout the years that is kind of like always sounds so amazing on a dance floor. You can play it during a house set, you can play it during a techno set, and you can't tell if it was made tomorrow or made 15 years ago. And those, I always gravitate to those kind of tunes. Just shit that sounds amazing in a cool dark room, and they're not sort of like of an era, because they don't have any, they weren't big, and they're not like sort of marked out by any sort of production quality. They're just good underground house music. So
producing again, let's not skip that one over. I love Earthlings actually.
Talk about it before I stop again.
Love, it's fantastic. That's like the epitome of timeless track.
Hiatuses, I don't know what the plural is, but I've never been one for. I think I'd be a lot bigger, and I'd probably have like much bigger house if I'd sort of given into pressure to produce for the sake of producing and for the sake of staying relevant. I've never been into that. I've always felt that if I'm doing something, I need to be doing it from the heart and be doing it for the right reasons. And for me, the right reasons is because you want to create something you'll be proud of, to create something that you can play out and say, hey, I'm really pleased with this. Not create something because I need to get a few gigs, I need, my fee's going down, or my agent's not happy, they're not getting enough phone calls for me, or anything like that. I completely can only do things if I'm really feeling it. And I was making loads of music. I think I'm not sure what actually kickstarted it, but around sort of 2007, 2008. I think maybe it coincided with switching from PC to Mac, and I finally gave in and went, I finally went to a MacBook Pro and got Logic. And I'd had Logic before on a PC, but when I got Logic on a Mac, it was like, whoa, this is really good. And I just started started churning stuff out, and was really into it. I was on a real roll, and I was putting out an EP every month. I was looking back on I found an old release schedule on my computer, and I was putting out an EP every month. I think what happened was I had my own label, and I always thought that was going to be like the easiest thing in the world. Just put really sort of simple, no drama, no bullshit. And it ended up really costing me so much money, and things were done wrong all the time. Record sleeves were I'm quite anal, and record sleeves are like printed with like 1mm out, so the label didn't sit quite right inside the hole in the sleeve, or the writing on the spine didn't quite match up. All these little things, and really niggled me, and they kind of like really sort of like put my heart, dampened my experience of having a label, because it became quite sort of like sketchy in that sense. It kind of like put the what's the word? Kind of put me off producing a little bit, and then also as well after making so much music within quite a short time, I started to get to a stage where I felt like I'd start up a new track, and then after about 3 hours of fiddling with it, I'm like, yeah, it kind of sounds like one you've done before, or it's not really got it, is it? And I thought, and after a period about 6 months, I was really trying to force myself, and I tried all sorts of stuff. I looked at like other people who'd like had problems with like producing, and I tried doing really random things, you know, like just like using only one synth for a track, or randomly picking one sound and making sure that was going to be the basis for that track. And then I tried all these different little things, and they weren't really working at all. So I just thought, well, just don't do it. Don't force yourself into something you're not comfortable with. Just focus on your DJing. So I really focused on my DJing, and kind of just thought, I'll go back to that if it's right, you know. And then it was actually when I started with doing the 3D stuff with Dave Seaman and Darren Emerson. They were like, look, playing together is going to be good, but I think we should do some music together. We should do an EP. And I'm like, well, I haven't really done anything for years. I'm not really in the swing of it, of producing. I don't even know if my Logic on my computer still works. And Dave was quite pushy about it in a really good way. He said, look, give it a go. And I've got this engineer you can go and sort of finish it up with called Jay. And so I knocked up a little basic idea on my computer, and then went in with Jay, and we really hit it off. And it was like, oh, you know, suddenly like out of nowhere. And I had the title actually. As soon as I made the demo at home, I had the title Earthlings, which is Earthlings X, which is like influenced by sort of a very, very, very important film that I want everyone to see. So I'm hoping with the title that might make a few people watch it. That's my plan. So anyway, yeah, I came up with this, and this was the first track I'd made after like all these years, and I was really happy with it. I was like, well, in that case, when I went home that night and started working on another track, and then another one, and before I knew it, right now I'm at a stage where I've got about sort of 12, 13 new tracks, and I've got really back on a roll again. I'm really loving it again. And you know, I'm sure maybe there'll be like half of them won't even come out, but it's just things that I'm playing out, things that I'm really happy to be playing out, and things that are kind of like tailor-made for you know, my sets, in the sense that there's little tracks that I know can get me from you know, this stage of a night to that stage of a night, or bring me from there down to here, you know, these kind of things. So yeah, I'm really back on it again, and really, really happy with the response to the first track and the whole EP. And yeah, I'm just looking forward to sort of getting more out and doing more this year.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
that's really
happy.
cool.
I've got another free track EP coming out. I can't say the label yet, but one of my absolute favourite labels. That's going to be in May, I think. So in about a month's time. So and they're tracks that I've been really heavily playing out, and when people see that release, they'll recognise the tracks, because I've been kind of caning them a little bit.
Nice. That's really cool to like get back into, and it's I don't know.
It was also natural, like, you know, nothing forced about it. And
yeah,
for
exactly.
me, it feels I'm really happy. And if it had been any other way, I wouldn't have been happy I wouldn't have done it. Full stop. You know, but it's just felt, once I actually got given a little kick up the bum, it's like, yeah, it's the right time to do it. It's the time to get back into it. Not to sort of like try and increase my visibility, or to try and sort of make me relevant in any way. Just do something that I'm happy to do and happy to play out, and that is really what makes me happy, and more happy than anything. So it's
it's nice. It sounds like so much of your career, your life is lived like that, and it's really inspiring. Is that you the same way with DJing? Like, did you ever get burnout or
no? I think there were periods where I wasn't that what's the word, I did have a couple of periods in my career. I think one was probably around sort of shortly after like doing Global Underground, and I'd had that sort of run of doing compilations and doing compilation, touring all the time, another compilation, producing, you know. And I did find that I wasn't enjoying DJing as much. And I think around, I'm not sure exactly when, I was doing a lot of big rooms. I remember one tour in particular, I played a lot of big gigs in the States, and I think it was in support of maybe the Global Underground Miami album. I did a lot of big rooms, and I found it quite, I remember at the end of it I was kind of like just really shattered and really kind of like uninspired, and that was when I decided to do Dig Deeper. Not as a label at the start, but as a club night where I could like go to a small room and play open to close. I think I might have been stung by a few really bad openers as well, and I thought, right, sod this, I'm going to go and do the whole thing myself, and I can lay down the law. And if anyone says to you, can you play like harder, can you play like more like this, and I'll be like, no, it's my night, I'll play exactly how I want to play. And also having Dig Deep, the name Deeper in the actual club night, you know, if anyone was to say, oh, you're not playing hard enough, I'm like, look at the name of the night. So yeah, I wasn't happy then, but out of that unhappiness came Dig Deeper, and obviously then came the label. And I think another period that I wasn't happy as well was probably more earlier in this decade, I think, which was more kind of to do with physical issues really. I was finding myself, I was eating really bad, I was smoking, I still drink, but I was drinking a lot more then, and kind of like having like started to sort of develop sort of anxiety and fear of going out to play, and it kind of affected my whole sort of like life overall really, I think. And I made a lot of changes, and I think obviously I quit smoking, I started to exercise, and I went vegetarian, and then I went vegan and started to take more care of myself. And I found that actually totally reinvigorated my whole sort of like what's the word, craving for DJing and being able to sort of deal with the things it throws at you much better. You know, like for example, in the very worst case scenario, you have a cancelled flight, which has happened to me before. It happened to me in the most awful place in Sydney, where, you know, I can't get there often. Yeah, it's not like I can go back the next week and make up a gig, and I missed my gig, and I'm like, shitting hell, you know, it's really bad. But it's kind of like put me in a situation where it's like, it's in a state where you sort of like, well, nothing I can do can change this. All I can do is try and make amends as soon as I can. And also gave me the spark to be much more sort of inspired, like when I actually preparing for a gig, not getting as nervous as I used to be. I used to be constantly pacing the room, drinking copious amounts of coffee and smoking.
Yeah, that doesn't help.
No, I do all these things that make me worse, you know. And like now, it's kind of like really changed me and made me much more laid back about things as well. You know, I still put everything into like all my gigs and preparing, and always kind of looking at what I did wrong and what could be improved. But not beating myself up about things, because there's absolutely no point. You know, if you do something wrong, or if you play a bad set, or if the crowd isn't great, or you play on a shit sound system, you can't do anything about that because it's happened. I mean, you can obviously try and change it on the night and try and switch things up, but if you come home and you've like, it hasn't gone well for whatever reason, there's no point crying about it. You just got to take it on the chin and put that into your next gig, and make sure whatever happened doesn't happen again. And so yeah, I think like you sort of bounce back from those kind of things with DJing a lot quicker, I think, you know, and you make changes and you adjust to things you're not happy with quicker, because there's no point prolonging it. You know, going out on the road just for the sake of earning money or for esteem or whatever, it's just, for me, it's not a thing at all really. It's like either you're into it, you're passionate about it, and you know, I when I'm having a good night, I'll be burning off calories left, right and centre and doing more mileage and the Mick Jagger, I reckon, because I was really into it. I love hearing the music on a big system. I love the excitement of like playing different tracks in each set. I love the not knowing what these two tracks are going to sound like together, even, you know, and it's just all the little things that inspire you when you're starting out as a DJ. They're still there. So yeah, I forgot what your original question was, but yeah.
No, that's an amazing, I don't know, it doesn't matter, because that's an awesome response. And that's really, about like getting burnout from DJing.
Yeah, because it's not really an option so much really. I mean, because usually if you burn out, you kind of like, not so much now, but like before, if you did experience some sort of burnout, you were kind of booked up, you know, and having to like I think the closest I got to a kind of physical burnout was probably like 2011, I think. And I actually, I was having some sort of back issues as well, which kind of just disappeared now. Yeah, and I ended up missing a few gigs. I had to cancel a few for sickness, and I had to go see my doctor and get a certificate, and it was like the worst feeling in the world. So like I said to you before, like burning out. I mean, like, if you say, all right, I'm going to like take 4 months off, that's going to be letting down a lot of people that put in a lot of work into, you know, putting like their nights together, hiring lights, whatever the things, the promotions, you know, all the things they would have done. You're letting down a hell of a lot of people, and so it kind of like, yeah, like I said, you have to sort of snap out of those kind of things quite quickly and get back on it. You could say, right, I'm going to take, at the end of this year, I'm going to take a year out, but yeah, I mean, when I did sort of start feeling physically under the weather, I did immediately start taking action. Like I started exercising straight away. I think I decided I had enough of smoking, and so I quit smoking, and I stopped eating meat, and then soon after to start eating dairy. Then I started exercising, and just physically went from, I think I just nipped it in the right in bud at the right time. I think when you sort of like get out of your 30s, it's kind of like the time you start taking a little bit of care of yourself. And I'd had all that time before not giving a crap about what I put in my body, or how much, you know, like I partied, or how many bottles of tequila I drank, or how little I exercised, or anything like that. And when I sort of like hit 40, or, you know, thereabouts, it's kind of like, here's a few little warning signs, you know, and it's like, okay, you need to do a few little changes, which will turn out to be the best thing for me ever done.
Yeah, it's awesome to be in tune like that, because I think, like you're saying, you know, you fix the physical things, and then that changes your mental state as
it does
well.
completely.
And
Absolutely.
that's like, people probably get stuck not knowing why they're in this mental state, when there's like physical things that you can do for your body to like put yourself in a better
It's important.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah, that's awesome.
No, I said to you, I was running earlier, and like, for me, like running was like 10 years ago would have been alien. I spent the whole day in my room watching telly, or leaning out the window, smoking cigarettes, or, you know, drinking booze from the minibar. I mean, I still drink booze, but I usually have like a 9 or 10 o'clock kind of like what's the word, limit. I won't drink in the day. And Miami as well, I used to come here, and I think sleep was kind of, at one time I came to conference and I went home and I hadn't used my bed in 4 days.
I think that's really important and awesome. I know you're really passionate.
Yeah.
How did you start getting into?
Well, I think there was always like a sort of connection there. I think I grew up like most people, not really knowing or caring about, you know, like where my food came from, or whether my shampoo had been tested on animals, or where you know, just very naive about everything. I used to think leather is a byproduct. I mean, I had the kind of like inkling about certain things. I always saw fur as being wrong, but didn't see a problem with things like leather or wool and this kind of thing. So I think there's something there. I had some sort of like connection in a certain area, but I'd never really examined it. I'd never really sort of looked into it at all. And I think there's a few sort of triggers for me, like throughout a couple of years. One was when I was with my ex-girlfriend, and I think my car broke down. No, we went to like a little children's farm. We were driving past it one day, and she loved animals, and she said, "Let's go and see these animals." And I'm like, "Yeah, okay, yeah, all right." And we went there, and we were like cuddling these sheep through a little fence, and we were kind of like stroking them for ages, and they were like really loving towards us, and really loving the attention, and we were giving him bits of grass and this kind of thing. And then looking at him, and I looked at her and I said, shit, do you realise we ate one of these last night? And she was like, yeah. And so we sort of like went vegetarian. It didn't last actually, but it kind of, that was like one seed planted. I think another time as well, for me the big moment was, I think I've been researching a few little bits. I've been seeing things trickle into my Facebook at that time, because I think, I think I'd started following a few sort of animal rights organisations, and I'd started to see some sort of things that kind of horrified me a little bit. And then I think flying home from Argentina one day, and I got upgraded to business class, and I chose to have a steak. Cutting into it, and this blood started pouring out of it. And I gave it straight back. I didn't even take a mouthful of it. I just gave it straight back, and I said, I can't eat that. And just give me the dessert, and loads of wine.
I need to forget.
And I got home, and I think I had a few bits of like stuff in the freezer. I think I finished them off. And then that was it. I'm like, okay, I'm going vegetarian. But I immediately started like looking into it. The minute I went vegetarian, I started following these different like organisations like Mercy for Animals, PETA, all these different animal rights groups. I started following animal sanctuaries, and I started to sort of like, reality hit me. Basically, I started to realise that animals don't die of a heart attack having had a long, loving life. And I had no clue. I mean, obviously, maybe I'd sort of like had some sort of inkling, but I had no clue that animals were killed at such young ages, that chickens would go through such a vile life before sort of being strung up at literally weeks old. And lamb, I never looked at the word lamb. Lamb is a baby sheep, and all these things that I'd never actually sort of like really confronted, suddenly it all made sense to me. And it's like, oh crap. And so then I started to look into dairy and eggs, and I was horrified. I was like, okay, there must be like a nice way to obtain an egg. And I started looking into it, and I started looking into the practices that take place all over the world in debeaking of chicks, the chicks that are ground up at a day old, or suffocated because they're no use to the egg industry. They don't produce, and it's more cost efficient to actually kill them as a day old chick than it is to actually keep them alive or give them to a sanctuary. So all these things kind of like were like, whoa, this is like such heavy duty shit. I think the only thing for me to do is go vegan. I'm like, how the hell am I going to do that? But I think after a period of readjustment, and this is why I talk about it, and why a lot of us do, is because I see how easy it is. I see how good it can make you feel. I see how alternatives there are to like any sort of animal product you want. You can. There's nothing you go without. I used to think I'd be giving a load of stuff up, and for that little period of adjustment, I was kind of going without a little bit. I was like sort of like finding my groove and working out which products I could buy, and it was a little challenging at first, and it's a learning process that you never stop learning. It's like, because it's so much to know about it, you never stop learning, but that at the same time is what makes it so exciting. I thought, oh my god, it's going to be a real chore, it's going to be so hard, my life's going to be brown, like the 70s. You see like anything, like you see like some cooking show from the 70s, and they're doing vegetarian food. It's like a plate of brown. It's like, I'm like, my life is I'm going to go back to the 70s. I'm going to be wearing a brown cardigan and eating brown food, and like just drinking like brown drinks. And it's not like that at all. It's the most colourful world, and it just opens up everything to you. It opens you up to so many new things that you never would try, or you never would have tried making. And my life before was kind of like that whole sort of routine. One day a week you have like sausage and chips or whatever, and another day you're going to have like, you might have a McDonald's, and it's just like that routine of like just rotating the same old crap day in, day out. And I got really like heavily into it. I was like, okay, this is like the biggest thing that's happened to me, really. And I didn't feel I was doing enough. I felt just me choosing not to pay people to exploit animals on my behalf is not enough. I need to sort of do what I can to sort of try and show others the benefits of it. So I got involved in activism, and that was like the beginning of 2017, and really, really scared. I'm quite sort of been DJing for years and sort of going out in front of big crowds, and not really talking that much, but just being in front of in a spotlight kind of thing. getting involved in activism, I was kind of really, really, really scared, you know, because the first thing I ever went to was an anti-fur protest, and I'd been on one protest before, which was an anti-Brexit march. And this was like, well, this is like, okay, but you got to do it. You know, I felt like a duty to the animals, to do as much as I can possibly do. And that's where I'm at right now, really. You know, I'm really expanding what I do in terms of activism, trying to learn more all the time, trying to find ways to be effective as an advocate, and balancing that with my music. And I really feel right now that having the two sort of things at very sort of like opposite ends of the spectrum, I can't get bored. You know, I can't get bored because I've always got the other one to think about. I've always, if I do too much in music side, I've always got the activism side to sort of distract me. I've got two things that really keep my mind alive. And for me, I think the only thing I want to try and work on is trying to sort of bring them in together a little bit more, you know, and that's kind of something for the future, definitely. Try and bring the activism into the music and try and
do you have like a vision of how that would work?
I'm thinking, I'm sort of toying with like different ideas right now. I mean, I want to sort of try and involve people, and I've always been a person that has like always enjoyed talking and hanging out with people that come to my gigs, and I love, you know, and what I've found in the last year and a half is actually enjoy talking to people that I meet randomly in London through demos and this kind of thing, about like animal rights, about veganism, about how easy it is to get rid of cheese from your life, to get rid of milk, and to talk to people about what happens in farming, not just in factory farming, but in like local free range, organic, high welfare, all these different things that people may not have actually had chance to think about before, or been hidden from them by the media, or hidden from them by the way these food and drink industries, they try and sort of paint an image which is so different to what really goes on. I found that I'm actually really comfortable talking to people about these things. So I'm sure there's going to be a way of like bringing them in together. You know, and I want to develop that. Any ideas, please let me know. I did an interview just literally a couple of days ago, and I was talking about the same sort of thing, and I mentioned that a lot of people have sort of said to me in the past, well, I've seen it on other people's pages. If you look at like Moby, you see a lot of people say things like, "I'll just stick to the music, mate. You know, you should just." And I think that is so wrong. And I really do believe that doesn't matter who you are, whether you're working in a shop, whether you're a musician, whether you're working in television, whether you're, you know, working like behind the bar, if you've got a voice, it doesn't matter how small it is, you use that voice to speak out on any issue you feel strongly about. You should use that. You should do something with that voice. I don't think you should like be sitting there feeling really hating the world, I can't believe this is going on in the world, and not doing anything about it. And people say, oh yeah, one person can't change things, but they can. They really, really can. And obviously you can't change the whole world overnight. I wish I could, but you know, one person, it's very difficult. But you can inspire other people to do it. People have inspired me to make changes, and you know, one person can like lead another person to make changes, and that person can go on to do God knows what. You never know what sort of this cycle, what chain you can sort of like, what part of the chain you're in, and what can spring off of, like, you know, something that you do or say. And so yeah, you know, I'm gonna work on that, and this is because I'm not gonna be giving up either of them at any point soon. So but it's nice having them separate in a way. But
yeah,
you know, I think
you were saying it was nice to have
them
separate.
It's nice having them separate, but then it's also like it'd be like a new avenue to create a whole new thing to be bringing them in together.
Yeah.
You know? And I think some people are very sort of like opposed to it, and I think people, like I said before, people are like, oh yeah, just stick to the music, but I'll do what I want to do. I'm just like
yeah, that's
totally
fair.
You know, it's like I'd
have
be
the right to do whatever you want to do.
Yeah, we all do, absolutely. All of us do, and I think I wouldn't be happy sleeping at night if I didn't feel I was doing my best. And I think, you know, I've still got better to do, but I'm still learning how to do that. But I wouldn't be sleeping well at night if I didn't feel I was doing my best, you know. And that's kind of like, I feel like I'm not cheating myself, and you know, I'm doing what I really do believe in.
anything else you want to tell people? Like anything else?
Well, I mean, anything really. I mean, I haven't really talked about the 3D thing much, but me and
I mean,
that was started up.
I actually was wondering if it was like a production and DJ thing at once. Then you answered
It's
that.
just
So
we
that's
don't know
like,
where it's going to go. I mean, it's another one of these things that just came out of nowhere. It wasn't planned. I mean, if there's been any planning involved, it'd be more Dave's side. Dave's very kind of like more the business one. Basically, myself, Dave Seaman, Darren, Emerson, we known each other for it's Dave, I think I've met him 92. Darren, I met him a few years later. But whenever we played together, we always got on really well. Then we got booked together for Ministry of Sound, and we really hit it off. And I think we ended up doing like a back-to-back. And we were like, yeah, that's really, really good fun. Dave was kind of like, well, let's try and do it again. And he came up with the idea of 3D for Dave, Danny, and Darren. We did it again. We were like, okay, let's try and make a regular thing of it. And I'm like, yeah, right. And I don't think I was really convinced it was going to work, because we've got like 3 different diaries, 3 different agents, this kind of thing. But I think, especially with like, thanks to Dave being quite sort of a bit more on the ball. With that kind of thing, you know, I'm not saying I'm slack or Darren's slack or anything. He has been quite sort of like, I think both Darren and myself would say Dave has been quite instrumental in like giving it the kick up the bum in terms of making it a regular thing. So that's kind of like just sort of grown really. We've ended up we're now at a stage where we're just about to do our first US tour, which is going to be like 6 dates. Then we've got like loads of stuff planned for summer. So yeah, it's a DJ thing. We just enjoy playing together. It adds another element to what we're all already doing. We have our own solo careers, we have our extracurricular stuff. Like they've got the families, I've got my animal family, and it adds another thing for us to be involved in, and it gave me the boost I needed to go in the studio again. We're going to do like EPs together where we have like 1 track each. We'll do another one similar to the first one. But we'll do this one on Darren's label, so we'll probably do something a bit more techno, and
that's cool.
yeah,
you do it on the different
again, like something different. I mean, I've got something in mind that I've been working on. I'm not sure if it's quite the thing I want. I might go and start something new, and then I think what the plan is, we might get a remix EP. We might get outside artists that we really love to remix our tracks, or we will remix each other's tracks, and then we'll get in the studio together as well and see how that pans out. So it's just kind of one of those things. We're not sure where it's going to go, but we're just like sort of trying to sort of do what we can.
I like it. It's unique, I think, too.
It's fun, yeah. It's like 3 blokes who still got a lot of energy, but have been around for like donkey's years, and just like wanted to try something new out. And you know, I don't know where it'll go, but I know it's been a lot of fun so far. And if it continues like this, you know, I'll be really happy.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's good fun.
Well, thanks. Do you want to share how people can reach you?
Yeah, well, I'm not very. Let me think. Yeah, my Facebook page is just Danny Howells. I've got 2 pages there. I've got both of them. One artist page, one personal page. Not so much of the activism stuff on my artist page. I don't really update that page as much as I should, or as much as my agent would like me to. But on my personal page, you'll see a lot of what I do outside of music. My Instagram, again, I think it's Danny Howells. Danny_Howells 78. That's where you find a mixture of what I'm doing. So you find the music stuff there, the activism stuff, kind of a real mixture there. Twitter, I try and use when I can remember it still exists. It's like, kind of like the coming the way of MySpace, where I kind of forget it's there, forget that it's still a thing. But I'm not really big on social media that much, really, and I have to really sort of push myself into doing it.
Aw, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for talking to me. I really appreciate it.